You have to believe in yourself in order to build a model for success. Now, what's wrong with that? I come from an inner city. The biggest dreamers are the people who don't have an opportunity to pursue a dream. Because all you can do is just look at TV. That's why in the African American community, entertainment and athleticism are so big, because it's relatable. You can go see it. You can go see a game. You can see a singer. You can play the music. I can do that. Well, I guess my dreams were on TV. So I watched TV. And because of the fact that I was exposed to television, they accepted there was more than what I saw when I walked out my front door, they put a burning desire that, what's next? What can I achieve? Who can I be? And that's the key right there, because people allow other people's limitation and vision to be introduced into their dreams will alter the course. I kid you not. I would still be at IBM. Nothing wrong with being at IBM. But believe me, when I left IBM to be a stand-up comic, there was a lot of controversy surrounding, is that a dumb move? How you gonna make money? And you know the funny part about it? I couldn't tell you how I was gonna make money. I just know that I was gonna leave IBM and be a comedian. It's time for you to understand that you are stopping you. It's not your parents, it's not your minister, it's not your kids, it's now on you. Now, when you stop, accept this, change. Accept this, planning. You have the tools to win. Just use it. New York City is a great city. Every block, every neighborhood is different. Such a powerful environment.
It's a town, I think, where there's so much opportunity. There's also a lot of pressure. It says you either make it or we're gonna go on to the next person.
New York has a mystique that tends to draw the most talented people in the United States and indeed the world to it.
I am back from New York City. It was crazy, it was noisy, and it was full of incredible people. And one of them is Rushion McDonald. This man has worked with some of the greatest names in media, from Kevin Hart to Jamie Foxx to Stephen A. Smith. But he's also something you wouldn't expect, and that is a master of reinvention. He grew up very poor in Houston, Texas, but found a way to get him into IBM, where he worked for a few years, and then decided that he was going to pursue a career in comedy. Everybody told him not to do it, but he was determined to try to make it there. And then when he finally saw that there were other opportunities, he decided to invest everything in the Steve Harvey media empire. And this guy pretty much engineered his whole career. He's super smart when it comes to knowing how to build a media personality. And he continued to do that, getting Stephen A. Smith an $8 million contract with ESPN. Pretty incredible. And now he's reinventing himself with a new book, a new personality, and a new message to people his age and also to the millennials. And that is, why settle at average when you can be so much better? He's an incredible guy, has some amazing stories, including how he survived cancer and how he's coming back. And I know you're gonna love this incredible episode with Rushion McDonald. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Rushion McDonald, the entrepreneur, brand ambassador, and media executive. You were the brand architect of the Steve Harvey media empire.
Yes, sir.
And a two-time Emmy Award-winning producer, working with names like Monique, Kevin Hart, and Jamie Foxx.
Yes.
You also mentor and manage Stephen A. Smith, America's most famous sportscaster,
yes,
who recently signed an $8 million annual contract.
I won't confirm
with ESPN.
that. I won't confirm that.
Okay, that's what I hear. Making him the highest paid talent on the network. We'll talk more about that later. Your new book, Why Accept Average When You Could Do Better, hits the shelves next year. Rushion, welcome to London Real in New York City.
Thank you. Well, my favorite city, by the way. I came here as a stand-up comic, pursuing my dreams. And so whenever I come back, it's always a breath of fresh air, because I know that dreams can be achieved through hard work and consistent and relationships.
Yeah. What does this city mean to you? I know you lived in LA, you know, you got places in Atlanta and Houston, but like when you think of New York, what do you think of? Like, what does it make you feel?
Well, I lived in New York before Disney was on 42nd Street, when they had the strip clubs and the drug deals and all that was going down. And when you walk down the street, you didn't know if you get out alive walking down 42nd. And so when I remember one time I came out of the subway, and it just felt like it was such a powerful environment. But what more importantly is, I realized as a youth how important New York City is into our books, into our history. And so when you come up here, you see the Statue of Liberty, you see Empire State Building, you see Broadway, you see 42nd. It really was like walking through a history. And it really affected me because I didn't realize I knew so much about New York until I arrived. And then tried to be able to conquer this environment. That's what it is. You have to win over New York.
Oh yeah,
New York
you
will fall
fight
on
for
you.
things in New York.
It will fall on you,
Yeah.
and so it never fell on me, and I'm proud to say that because I realized the environment was tied to hustle. It's tied to mass amount of people moving in one direction. I always tell people that one thing I love about New York is that if I walked out of my apartment naked, just no clothes, by the time I get to the street, I have a hot dog and be fully dressed. By the time I get to the block. Because that's what New York is. I furnished my apartment off of the streets of New York because I lived on 86 and First. Just went up a couple of blocks, 90 high-end area where they was putting out lamps and sofas and all that. Packed it onto my place and I had one of the best decorated apartments in New York City off the streets of New York City.
That's crazy. It's a town, I think, where there's so much opportunity, but there's also a lot of pressure.
Right.
And it doesn't give you a big warm hug. It doesn't give you puppy dogs and rainbows. It says you either make it or we're going to go on to the next person. That's what it means to me.
Well, isn't life like that?
Yeah.
And I think that
It's magnified here.
It's magnified here because there's so many people. I know when I was living here, it was like during the day it was 12 million people. At night it was 7 million people. So imagine you're just a crowd of people suddenly came into your house. You'd be confused and trying to figure out why are these people here and what they're going to do, what can I do, how can I benefit from them all being here. That's what New York City is. Just a rush of people coming in, they're doing their business and they exit immediately. And that type of atmosphere can be very frustrating for people, can be very intimidating for people. I loved it. I loved it. I enjoyed it. Hopping in a cab. I enjoyed walking the streets. I walked down from 125th Street, which is Harlem. I walked all the way down one day. I walked all the way down to 20th Street because I enjoyed the atmosphere. Every block, every neighborhood is different, and it's really New York City is a great city.
Yeah, it's great to be back here.
Coming from a boy from Houston, Texas.
Yeah, I know. That's a lot to be said from a guy from Texas. So, I wanted to kick off and just ask you, how can you tell when you've met a talent, someone who's got that thing, that X factor or something in them where you're like, man, I really think this person can be a star because you work with some big names. And I'm wondering if it's a one thing that you see, does it come over time? I remember Dana White saying when he had dinner with Conor McGregor, he said, this kid's got something that's going to make him a star. Right. And I always thought, but isn't that about fighting? And it wasn't just about fighting. So, you've seen this.
Yes.
Is there something?
It is. First of all, a little backstory on me. I was a very talented stand-up comic. And then I met Steve Harvey. He was my opening act. Comedian Steve Harvey, the megastar Steve Harvey.
Was your opening act?
Was my opening act
Wow.
as a stand-up.
Okay.
And then Def Comedy Jam came out, and I had my own comedy club in Houston, Texas, and I went out and the Def Comedy Jam tour came through Houston. They asked me would I perform on it. And I hadn't seen Steve in about 6 years, actually on stage. Okay. And I went on stage, and as they say, I murdered the stage. I slayed it. I left that stage, it was on fire. And he was following me.
Okay.
And so I sat back, and prior to the show, he'd asked me about his set. He'd asked me, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, so there was a level of respect that he had for me. Going through, he said, I'm thinking about doing this. I've been down to Houston a long time. Would you think this would work? This would work. And so when they introduced him, before he even got to the stage, he got a standing ovation, which was like, okay, he hadn't even told a joke yet. So the audience knew something special about him if I didn't know anything special about him. Of course, he went on stage and he did material that I would ever have considered doing myself. And I realized that this guy is funnier than I would ever be.
Wow.
And so 6 months later, he asked me, when he got an opportunity to have a show on ABC, what I wanted to do. And I told him I wanted to be a writer. Because I'd already seen greatness. I already saw a stand-up comic that I could not achieve his level of comedic ability. No insult to me, but what I've learned in my life is understand where your pecking order. And so when I run into talents like Jamie Foxx, when I met Jamie Foxx on his TV show, I told him he was the next Sammy Davis Jr. type guy, because he could do those things. He could sing, he could dance. He was far funnier than Sammy Davis Jr., but I knew he had an ability, and guess what? He won an Oscar. Same thing when I met Monique. Monique, her natural ability, and all these people have a desire to be great. See, a lot of people want to be great, but these people have a desire to be great.
And you can feel it when you meet them.
When you talk to them, their conversation is different.
What do they talk about? The future?
They talk about the future. They talk about, and also they talk about, and they're very informed about telling you what you should be doing.
Okay.
Because they're trying to choose the people that come along with them.
Okay.
Because of the fact that it's a very competitive market out there. As you know yourself, you have friends you go to high school with, and they go away. You have friends you go to college with, they go away. But eventually, when you're on that path to success, either you hire the people to protect you, or the friends who are with you understand you, and they can maintain that speed. And you can't ever have people around you that doubt your dreams. And so people who are special have those people around them. And they also have they're already putting it in place. That's the funny part about it. They know where they're gonna go.
So they're building their team, they're recruiting with their vision.
I'm telling you something, Kevin Hart, I used to see him run around, and I didn't even know him. It was this guy running around. He had like 2 or 3 people following him around, videotaping himself on stage all the time. And I said, who is that guy? It's Kevin Hart. He'd do his routine, hop off stage, go to the next club, do his routine. So he had a vision way back then. So I'm not shocked that he has more social media followers in the history of stand-up comedians. Nobody matches him, because he was already putting those wheels in motion.
He was building the future.
He was building the future.
Those assets of himself. He knew they were going to be worth more.
Absolutely. And Stephen A. Smith, the same way, hard worker. I always tell people say, well, you did this for Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey is a special talent. He works equally as hard as I work. Those are the people I gravitate to. People who either try to outwork me or match my work ethic. Those people, if you want longevity, there are famous people out there. For longevity, all these people in the entertainment industry who are corporate wizards, they are workaholics, but in a good way, because they're workaholics about their brands. And people tend to knock them because they use the word, well, they're selfish. They only think about themselves. Well, I think that's how it works. You have to believe in yourself in order to build a model for success. Now, what's wrong with that? And so that's what I build my philosophy on, is that people have to start thinking more about themselves and then come back and rescue other people. You can't rescue people when you're drowning too. And that's the philosophy people have now, and we gotta change that.
Yeah, one of my mentors says, get selfish. That's what he says, get selfish. And a lot of people don't like that because, we're taught to help other people. But he said, unless you make the best of you, you're gonna be a drain to other people.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna tell you something. That's because people don't understand the word selfish. Because it's been described to them in the wrong task. It's been described to them. We're talking about, if you want to be successful in life, you have to set aside time for that opportunity to be successful. Now, I have a beautiful daughter. I've not been there for her all the time, but that doesn't deny my love for her or her love for me, because we talk all the time. And so it's how you have to reshape the relationship so everybody understands what you're trying to do. And if you're doing something that cannot be explained, it's like your life. If someone asks you what you do on a daily basis, you go, I really can't tell you. And something, I'm not gonna tell you because I'll be tired telling you. Where if you're a bank teller, and nothing wrong with being a bank teller or IT person or a person who sells, they can tell you exactly what they do. And people understand that. So when people like us come into play, people who are visionaries, people who are entrepreneurs, people who are entertainers, you have to be selfish because the clock that we work on isn't a normal clock. We may have to do something at 2 a.m. We may have to work 20 hours in a day, which I've done. And so the 8-hour clock does not work for us.
And it's natural for people to reject you for what you're doing because it's not normal.
That's
it might
exactly
make
right.
them feel weird
That's
and stuff.
exactly
so you
right.
get called selfish, workaholic, egocentric,
Yes.
all these other things. But that's what determines greatness.
It determines greatness because
Most
of
of the time.
And I would tell you this is that I also preach a balanced life. You know, something I didn't have. You know, I would tell anybody openly that 16 years of managing Steve Harvey was fantastic, but I didn't have a balanced life. I didn't understand how I could get off that wheel, that little rat wheel.
How was it not balanced? You were working all the time.
I was working all the time because I was learning on the job as well, and also I was fighting. You know, this was a brand I was building by myself. I had my best friend and Steve's best friend as well, attorney Ricky Anderson, but there was no major agency supporting his transition from very popular African-American comedian to the guy he is now, which is world-renowned and crosses all genders as well as racial and lifestyle boundaries. You know, there was nobody there but me. And so I had to trust my instincts. I had to trust and believe that I could do these things. So when you're tired like that, when can you stop? When you can't, when can you? Because if you do, you might miss some information for the next opportunity.
So you wouldn't do it again, but you're glad you did it then.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna tell you something. I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it again because, you know, lessons are what they are. You learn from them. And so I don't have a bad life because I had that experience. I have a great life because I had the experience, but you learn from your experiences. And that's what a lot of people don't do. They complain about it, but they don't want to learn from it. And that's a stubbornness that they have to stop.
Admitting to yourself that Steve Harvey was a better comedian, you got to check your ego to do that. A lot of people would live the rest of their lives trying to beat him on stage. But you've had a lot of interesting transitions in your career.
Yes, I have.
From, you know, IBM to stand up to that to what you're doing
Writer,
now
producer,
even.
yes.
Now you're writing your own book and doing your own thing. That, in my opinion, when I look at you, I see a man who can separate his ego from the equation and make a logical decision about what's the best way forward and the most effective way forward.
Right.
Am I right in that? And how did you find that? How did you get that way?
Well, you know, let's put it this way. I come from an inner city. And so I would tell you that the biggest dreamers are the people who don't have an opportunity to pursue a dream. Because all you can do is just look at TV. That's why in the African-American community, entertainment and athleticism are so big, because it's relatable. You know, it's something you can go see it. You can go see a game. You can see a singer. You can play the music. I can do that. But what's not attainable in their mind is IBM.
Right. Because you don't see African-American role models in those places.
In the inner city.
Right.
You don't see it. So how can you dream something that you can't believe? Well, I guess my dreams were on TV. So I watched TV. And I watched TV and it showed me there was a world that I didn't see that world when I walked out my door. So curiosity really was always was locked to me very early on. And then I had teachers who saw that same blinding talent that I resisted because it was tied to hard work. To do anything in life, as you know, Brian, it's hard work involved. And so if you are not willing to do that, then you're just dreaming about an opportunity that you will never accomplish or achieve. And because of the fact that I was exposed to television and accepted there was more than what I saw when I walked out my front door, it put a burning desire that, what's next? What can I achieve? Who can I be? And that's why I'm able to, as some people have called me, a Renaissance man, because I'm able to adapt and accept responsibility of who I am and what I'm capable of doing at that moment and move on.
What are those TV shows you're watching that put the dream in there?
I'm gonna tell you something. Of course, Ed Sullivan's show, Red Skelton's show. As I got older, the Flip Wilson show. When I started seeing black people on TV, going, wow. Anybody else seeing this? Sanford and Son. These shows started letting me know there wasn't enough of them on TV, but there was enough for me to be able to say, okay, they look kind of like me, and where are they doing this at? And so you get curious and you start doing your research and you start cutting out pictures of cars. You start driving in different neighborhoods when you could, or catching a bus in a different neighborhood, driving by houses and go, why don't these houses look like the houses where I live? How did they get to these houses? And that curiosity, what has drove my personality all my life. I'm gonna tell you something. If you got a nice car, I'm gonna figure out why I can't be in that same nice car.
Were you born with that?
I think that from my mom, she had a high school education. My father had like a third grade education. He was a truck driver. So it wasn't like my atmosphere pushed me in a direction to be that way. But what they allowed me to do was just be Rushion McDonald. You know, trust who you are. And my mom really allowed me to be who I am because she felt that I could do anything that I wanted to do as long as I worked hard to do it. And I've never failed her. I've never failed myself.
Did she see you become successful?
Absolutely.
And how did she feel about that?
Well, I was able to, one of the things, because we grew up in the inner city, and one of my goals in life was to say, my mom, she's going to live a life in central air and heat. And she had this house in the community, and she wouldn't let me tear it down. But I built
the shotgun house.
Oh my God!
What's the shotgun house for people that don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you open the front door or the back door and you shoot a gun through the house, it doesn't hit anything. It just goes right through. That's what they call the shotgun house.
Small, thin house. Right, okay.
Absolutely. And she would not let me tear that house down. So I built the portion I built to it was probably 4 times more expensive than the portion that she was holding on to. So she got to live that life.
And you say to people, get out of the inner city, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of your messages. Mm-hmm. Get out. Right?
I say get out of any environment that's negative to your potential dreams. Okay. And I tell people that because I'm gonna tell you something. A parent could be negative. Your kids could be negative. Your wife or girlfriend, your partner could be negative. Your minister could be negative. Because you have to realize that a lot of people can't understand your vision. It means they're not gonna give you advice. They're gonna hold you back. They're gonna set points of doubt in your mind. And that's important for you to understand that, is that so many people right now are being held back by people who say they love them. And they don't even know that. But they're afraid to admit that because, well, they would, because guess what? It's work. Let me tell you something. If you want to achieve success, everybody around you have to accept the responsibility of the success that you're trying to achieve. If they don't believe in it, you'll never win with that person. Right. So you have to surround yourself with people who think like you, walk like you, talk like you, eat like you. Now, if they happen to be a different color, cool with it, go for it. If they're the same color, cool with it, go for it. But you gotta have people who believe in your thought process, your dreams, your work ethic. Otherwise, you will not win.
Now, a lot of people are saying, Rushion, but if my mom loves me, how come she doesn't support me?
Because she doesn't understand you.
Right.
She doesn't understand you.
And she's got her own life and her own values and her own limitations.
Absolutely.
That are being projected on you.
You said it right there, limitations. And that's the key right there, because people allow other people's limitations and vision to be introduced into their dreams will alter the course. I kid you not. I would still be at IBM. Nothing wrong with being at IBM. But believe me, when I left IBM to be a stand-up comic, there was a lot of controversy surrounding, is that a dumb move? Or is that a good move? Are you crazy? How are you gonna make money? And you know the funny part about it? I couldn't tell you how I was gonna make money. I just know that I was gonna leave IBM and be a comedian. But I left with so much doubt though. Because they had burdened me with so much, so I left with, I could always go back.
Right. And that's that safety net you say don't have.
Yes.
Because that held you back.
Yes.
You weren't all in.
I went all in.
Right.
I went all in.
And that made a difference.
It made a huge difference because once we allow somebody that negative message to creep into your dream, it will slow it down or it can alter the direction. That's why people are sitting at home, not happy, working in jobs, they're not happy. And then guess what? They take that negative spirit that affects them physically. And guess what? Eventually can lead to, guess what? A disappointing life, physically and mentally.
Yeah. A lot of people, though, aren't willing to sever those ties of love because it's my mom, and it's my brother, and it's my sister, even though they could probably openly admit to both of us right now that they have massive negativity and it's holding them
Absolutely.
back. But they just aren't willing to make the cut, and go forward. What do you tell kids?
I'm gonna tell you something. You have to write down, it really is simple, write down the pros and cons of that relationship. You have to. Write down and you will see that the cons will outweigh the pros. And then you have to say, what do you really want to do? I tell people, When people hit 40, 50, 60, I'm gonna tell you something. They basically have given up on their dreams because they have in their mind, based on the system that surrounds them, that they cannot achieve it because they're getting too old, there's not enough time. Because you get it in financial meetings. They'll tell you, well, you gotta invest differently if you're 40 versus 30 versus 50 versus 40. They'll tell you right there's a clock that you might not be able to achieve financially. So things are put in place throughout your whole life to tell you when you reach a certain age, stop.
Right.
You'll never achieve it.
And you don't believe in any of that stuff.
You cannot. But people do that. But the power of the youth, though. So I tell people in your 40s and 50s and 60s, if you're not happy with your life, go back to in your early 20s when you had that fire and brimstone, when you were a dreamer. You said, this is what I want to do. Before people start shifting your ideas and taking over your path and telling you should be doing this, and you accepted that ignorance. In that 20s, that's the person you wanted to be. And it's not too late. You can still be that person. Go back and understand that those values. See, do not look at that job resume, because everything on that job resume is things that you just did for a job. I'm talking about your passion, your gifts of what you want to do. Those are in your early 20s. They got shifted, they got diverted, they got changed because you either got married, you moved, maybe you're in the military, got a bad relationship, or you just lost confidence in yourself because you didn't have people around you protecting you. Go back to your early 20s and start shaping your future. And do not let your age stop you. 40, 50, 60, just numbers. I don't care. I'm gonna tell you something. When I wake up the next day, I'm happy because guess what? I've already went to sleep knowing I have a plan of success when I wake up.
I mean, I see people in their 70s these days crushing it. I mean, they're crushing it.
Yes.
And so you can channel that 21-year-old you. You also say when you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, don't look down on the millennials. You're saying look at them and see how they can inspire you. Look at what they're doing, right?
I'm so disappointed in how people are so negative on millennials. I hear people, well, they want to be successful right away. Okay, I grew up with a rotary dial telephone. Okay, to dial 911, okay, just press the button now, or just say 911. Technology allows you. The problem I have with the older generation, or my generation, is that they don't embrace technology. So they don't really understand why a young person can think this way, why a young person can be as arrogant about their opportunities. I call anybody on social media really as an entrepreneur. Know that right now, that you have the ability to brand yourself, to promote yourself, because
you said it's like having your own press conference.
Absolutely, it really is. But more than that, used to be corporations did that. Corporations used to say, "Hey, I'm going to tell you I got the best hamburger, I got the best car, I got the clothes, I got the best perfume." But now, as an individual, you can say that. See, that's the difference. What we have now, and we need to embrace that. Millennials are taking advantage of that. That's why you have so many young millionaires and billionaires in the history under 30, because they're taking advantage of that technology. But because we don't want to accept that and understand and feel that our clock has run out, or our clock won't allow us a window to achieve any particular dream that I'm talking about, Rushion, shut up. I'm 60. Okay. Why are you telling me? Why are you accepting the fact you have an age to tell me about? I don't live my day based on my age. I live my day based on the fact that I have a goal tied to what I want to do in 3 months, 6 months, in a year. I don't say, hey, I'm 60, 61, 65, 70. If you start thinking like that, then you'll start limiting your opportunities.
Yeah, so embrace that technology, get inspired by those millennials, and get back in the game, right?
Well, not only get back in the game, accept the game. The game is not changing, it's just advancing. The really interesting thing, Hillary Clinton, when she announced her presidency, that was the first time she did it, and it was done on an iPhone. So realize how fast life has been the last few years. And so with that being said, before that, we didn't have that technology, didn't have that belief. So now we have to understand that technology just keeps getting more and more advanced, the apps. And if we don't accept that, I'm talking about the older generation, then we'll be missing our opportunities to be successful. Please understand that technology, embrace it, and it will be your friend, and drop age.
Yeah.
Ignore age.
Very well said. Let me ask you about creating content, because you went to work for Steve Harvey. You went in the writer's room.
Yes.
And a lot of people out there want to create content these days. Like you said, it's been democratized. Everybody is creating some type of content.
Absolutely.
You were in some of the top writers' rooms in the country. You spent 15 years in LA. What can you tell us about that process, what you learned? You created some incredible shows for Steve and built this whole empire for him. Tell us.
Well, you know, the thing about it, Steve gave me my first writing opportunity on his first show, ABC's Me and the Boys. And after that show, I went to Robert Townsend's The Parenthood. And then I went to Arsenio Hall's ABC sitcom. Then I went to Tia and Tamara Mowry's Sister. And then I went to Jamie Foxx show. And then I went to Monique's show, The Parkers. And then in 2000, I started managing him. So I had built a resume before I started managing him, which allowed me to have a confidence level when it came to content, to have a vision when it came to saying, if we do it this way, you can achieve success. That's why when I managed him, I did all of his concert tours. You know, all of his speaking engagements. I shot and directed all of his concerts, comedy concerts that went to DVD, Blu-ray, live feed. I did all that because of the fact that I understood that content control, content creative. So what do you hear now? Content's king. That's what everybody, but I always knew content was king, but I also knew that if you want to really make money, crossover. If you really want to be able to syndicate your brand, crossover. And that's what I did with his brand. And he was a willing participant to be able to say, let's do this.
Crossover, and what does that mean?
Crossover means that you're going from an urban market to a general market.
Right.
Okay, which means that if you're in syndication, you go from like 75%, 65% of your show being broadcast in the country to 99 to 100%. That's a major leap.
Right. And you're doing that right now. Stephen A. Smith, as you said, was doing Oscars tonight. I know him from ESPN Plus, and you know, he's having arguments with Joe Rogan about comments about Cowboy Cerrone, getting really relevant. And now he's doing Oscars.
Yes.
That's that brainchild of crossover, new audiences.
But you know, you have to have a willing participant.
Right.
You know, Stephen A. Smith, first of all, it's an individual that he said when he was fired from ESPN that I was there for him. I supported him, I mentored him, I gave him options to keep his brand afloat. And I was just doing Rushion, and I tend to do that a lot.
What do you tell people when something like that happens? Like what, you know, because he's looking up to you. I mean, they're in a difficult time.
I answer the phone.
Okay. And no one else is answering the phone.
Yes, I answer the phone, and I talk. And I have a rational reason to tell you, don't stop. Because I'm gonna tell you something, man. Success is tied to hype. So you ride hype until you get a check. But see, that's why I always tell people, I don't know how much money you make and don't really care. You shouldn't care about how much money I'm making. You should care about how much money you can make. That's what hype is all about. So if I don't know how much money you're making, then if I show up in a car, I fly first class, then guess what? I am presenting myself as a successful person. So I always tell people who are struggling, don't stop the game. Embrace the game, but realize it's gonna take effort and planning to go to the next level. So if you fall down, don't sit down there and tell everybody. That's the key. Act like it's no big deal.
Right. And so you kept him focused, thinking about the long-term prospects.
Absolutely.
We're getting back to this.
Absolutely.
And you did get him back to this.
Absolutely. And so when he asked me to come on board, he had a vision. Remember I was talking about the team? He had a vision in place. Rushion, I want to put together a team. I feel you're a key person I got to have on my team. Will you be my business manager? I said, yes, I will. Because you're understanding that a corporation, Apple is not successful because the CEO. There's a team. And that's why I got to tell people in life, you have to have a team. And sometimes your team is your family. But it's very, so what does that mean, Rushion? Well, when they come home, they should be positive. They should embrace the effort that you're putting out there to bring food home, and vice versa. And you should be understanding the role that they play. See, if everybody understands the role that they play in people's lives to be successful, then more people will be successful. But people don't. And they'll complain, they'll point fingers because they don't want to understand the effort that's being put in place to win.
Yeah. Tell me about Stephen A. Smith. What's he like? Why has he been so successful? What does he do different than other people? And where's he going?
I'm gonna tell you something, and we was off air talking about this, Stephen A. Smith, and I tell him this all the time. I think I tell him a lot of things that he hears me, and then he'll tell me, somebody just said that, Rushion. And he said, you're always kind of ahead of what people are saying because of the fact that his articulation is off the chart. His vocabulary is off the chart. I used to watch him, and he would talk like for 15 minutes straight on an ESPN break or 5 minutes straight and wouldn't stumble. And I would call him, I said, man, that's not normal. It's not normal to be able to wrap a complete thought and then have a because you have a beginning, middle, and an end. And he could do that. And it is translated to social media. And there's no one that is more social media engaged than Stephen A. Smith, sports or otherwise. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, when he talks to camera, he's got some way of making you feel like he's talking to you. He's
or challenging you.
Yeah, or challenging you, saying something relevant, saying something controversial. And, like I said, this thing recently when he made this comment about the Cowboy Cerrone Conor McGregor fight, now everyone's talking about Stephen.
Absolutely.
Which you must have a big smile on your face.
Well, the thing about it is that we didn't know where that came from, because of the fact that, the other thing about that UFC situation was that they're acting like you can't comment on that sport, that you have to be nurtured in that sport. How you gonna comment on something that this is not? He was just making a comment. He has that right to do that, and so the conflict was that they felt that he had no right to make a comment, and that's not fair.
Yeah,
that's not fair.
Yeah, it's the way that I've been following the UFC for about 20 years, and so. For so long, it wasn't embraced by the mainstream, so everyone just is real protective of it.
Yes.
So when they see a newcomer come in,
right.
They say, well, you don't know what it's about, you don't know all the unwritten rules, the respect, the martial arts, etc. But Stephen's saying, I watched the fight, I work at ESPN, I'm gonna come in on the fight, and I think it's a healthy discussion. And,
it's an amazingly good discussion because now not only you already got a popular brand, now you're communicating your popular brand with a very popular sports figure or media figure, which I don't think Mr. White upset about this conversation. In fact, he knows that his brand is now moving on to another spectrum of opportunity of eyeballs. It's all about the eyeballs. And Joe Rogan, he's a former comedian. He's worked his way to this point where but he all know that everything is about growth. He grew into that position. And so that doesn't mean that you get to learn the sport too. And so that doesn't mean that Stephen A., just because that's not his sport 24/7, doesn't mean he can't comment on football or basketball or UFC or boxing. That's not fair.
Yeah. What are your plans for Stephen in the future? Is he just going to get bigger and bigger?
Game show host,
is he going to
talk
host the
show.
Oscars?
He can. I know some. Well, first of all, I want him to produce shows. I want him to. He has the ability to grow a brand with commentary because his background is journalism. And so we want to produce shows together. Then I want him to host a game show. Then I want him to host a type of one-on-one talk show. Not an Arsenio Hall show, just a one-on-one in front of a live audience, because I feel that's what's missing in the audience now. Oprah does it on her Sunday shows, but really America needs another voice, especially an African-American voice, to be able to talk to everybody. Okay. And I think it's missing. And I feel he can deliver that.
And that's what you bring to your clients. You want to give them this breadth. You want to give them more than that. Just I'm a personal brand. I'm doing my own thing.
Absolutely, that's what Steve Harvey did. Steve Harvey, brilliant stand-up comedian, did the original Kings of Comedy. Then we brokered a local deal in LA to do radio, which was a standard. Which the reason I did that because guess what? We had a check every week. We didn't have to worry about whether that gig got canceled, that talk show got canceled. We had a check every week, so it stabilized him emotionally and made him feel confident because he was getting paid. Now, other people saw that as like a step back, but they didn't realize my plan. That was only part of the plan. Get stability, then you can be able to say yes or no to opportunities that come your way. And then we moved in 2005 to New York City, WBLS, and syndicated the show. They told us that would never work because Tom Joyner at the time was the dominant voice in Morning Drive. We only had 4 stations. Well, now, just fast forward, 2020, Tom Joyner is no longer in radio. Steve Harvey is flourishing. But along the way, we were still dominant voices in the urban market. And that's when we had the opportunity to write the book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. And when that book was, know that we signed on the urban arm of HarperCollins. So they wanted the book to be, black women do this, black women do this, black women think this. And Steve refused that. He was, I'm not doing that. Make it happen. We're not gonna write a book that only resonates with black women when we know all women have relationship issues. Well, we fought that, and 3 million books later, it became 2 movies later, it launched an opportunity for him to get the Family Feud deal. Wow. The Family Feud deal crossed him over.
Okay, and that was your idea.
Yeah.
And that's bringing back that old classic, putting him in the middle of it, and then boom.
But he had already set the groundwork for that because of the fact that he had hosted Showtime at the Apollo, had great improvisational skills. He was amazing on his feet. And so if you watch the way Steve Harvey does that show, he'll come out and he'll go, are you ready? Just get fired up. Come over here. The Hanson family, the Johnson family. He does it really clean. And then when he goes to the families, he's Steve Harvey.
Okay.
When he comes out, he gives you the show, the polish, the articulation. But when he goes to the family, he's Steve Harvey.
Right.
Funny, brash, very clever, very friendly. Feel like you can go eat a hamburger with him along the sideline. And that's what makes him successful.
2 different types of showmen inside the same show.
And he's been working on
his background.
All comes from that hard work. That
Yeah.
hard work on Showtime at the Apollo. That hard work of being a stand-up comic on the road. That hard work of people telling you can't be there. He's a former stutterer. Okay,
Wow.
He stuttered. So overcoming those odds. And he's very, very smart.
Content, we'll just finish up on that. What can you tell us about what makes a good show, what doesn't? How can people learn about that? Is it about testing? Like, I don't know. What can you tell us about?
Well, a lot of people try to let me just back up a little bit. The number one mistake that people make is they bring a funny person and somebody go watch them on tape or watch one of their specials and say, I know them. I can write a show for them. No, you can't. No, you can't, because you don't know that person's nuances. And so sometimes they'll plug a talent into an idea instead of sitting down with the talent and saying, hey, what do you want to do? And then trusting that the talent can deliver the goods. I think Seinfeld did that, okay? And so because somebody actually listened to him and said, this is the show I want to do. And other situations have worked out equally successful as well, if you listen to the talent.
Because the audience knows. If it's not congruent with the talent, the audience will always reject it. Right?
If it's not organic, it won't work for the talent or the audience. Right. I don't care who you got on screen. The Hollywood is filled with television shows canceled with major stars attached to it. But you gotta have a talent that you really, Ray Romano's show. You look at that show, it was organic to his ability and his thought process. I remember when I was doing stand-up comedy in New York City, I was sharing the stage with Jon Stewart. I was sharing the stage with Dennis Leary. I was sharing the stage with Ray Romano. I was sharing the stage with Jerry Seinfeld. All these people work their craft. And guess what? They had successful shows. And because from their point of view. So if you want to get content that has longevity, start listening to the talent.
Right. Is that why you think you see so many famous YouTubers that blow up? Because they're being themselves, they're organic, they're just doing it their way.
They're being authentic. They know their audience, they know their voice. And so once you understand who you're talking to, see, the thing about it is that when you launch TV shows on networks and streaming now is really big, and then of course Facebook Watch and things like that. So what happens is you have people telling you got 18 to 34, you got 18 to 49, you got 25 to 54. Okay, so, but a person who launches a show on YouTube, they worry about their age group. They're not worried about 18 to 49 or 25 to 54, or if the age group is 25 to 54, that's who they're talking to. But when you come to network, they'll throw so many demos at you. Who can talk to everybody?
Right. So you end up talking to nobody.
Yes, yes, okay. yes. Because what happens is when they sell these shows, they sell them incorrectly. They should say, this person right here, when we bring this person on, I know you guys think we're 18 to 24 network or 18 to 34 network. This person's gonna be 25 to 54. Well, if that person's gonna be a 25 to 54, then you shouldn't put them on your network, because no audience is gonna find them on that network. A show that's successful on Fox is not gonna be successful on CBS. The shows are successful on CBS, may not be successful on ABC. All these people have developed lanes of entertainment that work for them because of the audience that they've cultivated for years. And so when you launch a show over there, you understand why it's successful and why it's not successful on the next network.
How important is it for your clients to be on YouTube, to do vlogs and embrace that raw form of social media? We saw Will Smith come out and embrace YouTube in the last 2 years. His wife, Jada, as well, embracing that podcast medium with no filter. How important is it for your clients, or do your clients need to think about those strategic deals going forward?
I think that social media is not going anywhere. Now, I will tell you this, you will not grow on social media like you could grow 10, 15 years ago. That's not going to happen because the algorithms are different.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.